Wonderful. Thank you all once again, those who are able to join us online live for the presentation and those who are watching it at a later time. My name is Gina. I'm the Executive Director of the Alport Syndrome Foundation. This presentation is part of our Ask the Expert series, which was made possible through a grant from Global Genes. As I stated a little bit earlier, I am going to mute all of the lines except those who are speaking, and I will leave them all mute until the end, at which point you can ask questions. If you have a question at any time, you can post it online. If you are watching us on your laptop or on your phone, you can post it online in the chat section, and we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. And with that, I would like to introduce Ms. Jacqui Blem. Jacqui, we've been working with Jacqui for a very long time. She's been a part of the Alport syndrome community and is someone who is very dedicated to helping ASF and Alport syndrome research progress. And she is currently the Senior Director of Project Management for Agility Clinical, and we are thrilled to have her here today, gracious for the time that she's putting into this to help educate us on clinical trials and the drug approval process. This is particularly relevant for Alport syndrome right now, as we have one phase 2 study that has already begun, and we anticipate another one soon. And so we know that there's a lot of questions from the community that have come up about clinical trials and the drug approval process, what it means to participate in a trial, what the different phases of each trial are. And so we are very grateful to Jacqui for coming here today and helping answer those questions for us. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Jacqui.
Thank you, Gina. Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqui Blem, and I'd like to thank the Alport Syndrome Foundation for asking me to present to you today, and a big thank you to Global Genes for providing the grant that supports these webinars. My goal today is I hope to help members of the Alport syndrome community better understand the clinical trial process and why your role as a patient in research is so critical. And I look forward to having your questions at the end of the study. There'll be plenty of time. So just as a quick background, I am a biologist by training, and I worked in the lab until 1995 when I discovered clinical trial work. And I realized that was my passion, and I've been following this career path for many years. I particularly enjoy working on rare disease projects, and early in my career I worked on an enzyme replacement therapy for Fabry disease. And more recently, I ran the Alport program at Regulus. So currently, I work in glioblastoma, which is also considered a rare disease. So today, I want to talk about the following things, as these are questions that I have received when I've attended some of the patient meetings for the Alport Syndrome Foundation, and it also comes from some input from Gina. So first, I want to talk to you about why it takes so long to develop a drug, and just give you an overview of what some of those timelines look like. Next, we'll talk about what you should consider before enrolling in a clinical trial, and then really kind of your call to action, how you can get involved, and how you can get more information about clinical trials. So first, why does it take so long to develop a drug? I'm just going to give you a peek behind the scenes and some of the stuff that we use to do our planning. I'm going to show you a typical drug development timeline. It's probably something you've seen before. We'll talk about the phases of clinical research studies, and then just what are the steps in setting up a clinical study. So I'll show you a typical timeline for an individual study. And then I'm going to take a quick step to the side and just give you a little bit of background about some of the events in history that triggered the regulations that control drug development. So this is a drug development timeline. You may have seen this before. This is something that is commonly shown. It's really to demonstrate to you that drug development takes a long time. It requires careful planning and some luck. So you can see that drug development just does not happen
Jacqui?
overnight. Yeah.
I'm sorry, some people are having difficulty hearing you. I'm okay on the computer end, but somebody just asked if you could speak up.
Okay. I'll get closer to my microphone. Okay. So when we talk about drug discovery, it does take a lot of effort. Pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, and university companies, or universities all over the world, are all involved in the effort. In the case of universities, the national governments provide the funding for the process. And at this stage, there are thousands of compounds that might be looked at, but after testing in the kind of this basic research and drug discovery stage, only a small number of compounds go into the next stage. The next stage is called preclinical, or some people in the industry call it non-clinical. Once a promising compound is chosen for development, the research team will conduct experiments, maybe using cell cultures or animals, animals, to gather information and answer questions about the potential drug. So what we're looking for there is, how does the potential drug move through the body, and how does it get broken down? What might the potential benefits be? What might the best dosage be? What are some of the side effects that can be expected from this potential drug? We call that looking at toxicity. You might also look at how it interacts with other drugs and treatments. Some disease conditions, you might expect that a certain drug would be frequently taken alongside this, so you want to look at the drug interactions. And so after the preclinical or non-clinical testing, the findings are reviewed, and it's decided whether it looks promising enough and safe enough to be tested in humans. So at that point, the company will file. I don't know if you guys can see. I'm trying to do it. Hold on. Can you guys see? Gina, can you see the arrow?
I cannot.
You cannot see an arrow? Okay. I should have asked you that. How about that?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So then, at that point, if all looks good, the company will file an investigational new drug application. So this is a compilation of all of the data that was collected prior to that point. So it's all of the appropriate animal data, all of the appropriate experiments and data that was collected, as well as manufacturing information. So this would include the stability testing and quality processes for developing that, for manufacturing that particular drug. And then that also indicates the plans for what the phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trial program would look like. So all of that goes in. The FDA team has 30 days to review the IND submission, and really what they're looking for, just to make sure that the data supports that future studies with humans going forward are going to be safe and relatively, that we're going to be looking at something that is free from significant risk. So this is just a table format of that section of the prior slide. just breaking down the phases of the clinical research. And so let's talk about phase 1. So these are safety studies. During these studies, the researchers are testing a new drug in healthy people most of the time. It's usually about 20 to 100 volunteers, but as I mentioned, so sometimes we could be testing in patients that have the disease or condition. People in phase 1 studies are closely monitored, and participants may actually be confined in a phase 1 unit. This confinement enables for the study to be performed in a very controlled environment. So everything is timed with the administration of the drug, and there are very specific times for blood draws, and even specific menus and specific timing for when people eat during that period of time. The purpose is to gather information about how the drug interacts with the human body and determine what the safe dosing range might be, and gather early information about the safety of the drug. So then this information is really important in moving forward to and potentially even refining the design of the phase 2 studies. And I just want to point out to you that some of you may have phase 1 units in your community, and you might hear advertisements looking for those volunteers, because those kinds of groups are always looking to add folks to their database, and it's usually a pretty interesting process. So phase 2 studies are also looking at safety of the potential drug, but also here we're looking at the study design to look for some indication of efficacy or a beneficial effect of the study drug. In this case, the study drug is administered to patients with a disease for which it's being developed, and usually it's around 100 to 500 study participants. The data from phase 2 is then brought into helping to refine the design of the phase 3 studies. So phase 3 studies are designed to confirm efficacy in a specific patient population. And of course, because it's a large study, we're also going to continue to collect safety data. And these are larger studies. They're longer in duration, and so sometimes we see things in these bigger studies that we hadn't seen in the smaller ones that preceded it. So these are the studies that occur before the application for marketing, which is called the NDA. And once the FDA has given approval for marketing, we can talk about phase 4 studies. And sometimes these are studies that are requested by the FDA to further answer questions, but these are usually ones that they're quite large and provide more information about the drug's best use and further information about risks and benefits of the drug. So not on this timeline, but I'm sure you've heard of the term natural history study. A natural history study collects health information over time and helps the company get more insight about how a disease might be treated. And so kind of going back to this slide, ideally I think we would want to have the natural history kind of more in this phase of the timeline, maybe even during phase 1, because you want to educate what you're going to do in phase 2. So clinical study designs are worked out very carefully. Some additional components that you may have heard about are placebo-controlled studies. So this is a study that has an active drug or something that is designed to look like the active drug. You may hear the term sugar pill or sham, so that's referring to as placebo. And then blinded studies. So these are associated with a placebo-controlled study. a double-blind study indicates that the study team does not know which treatment the study subjects are getting. So these kinds of these are implemented. Using a placebo, a controlled study, using blinded studies as part of your design, they're implemented to decrease bias. So if you as a study subject are participating in a clinical study that is placebo-controlled and is blinded, we would encourage you not to share that information about your experience on the study. For example, we wouldn't want you to share that, your pills that you're getting are much larger than another subject might be getting. So, you're making a guess about whether you're on active or not. We wouldn't want to introduce bias and therefore invalidate the purpose of the study. So here is an example of what a timeline looks like when, as a study sponsor, we're setting up a clinical study. So this is kind of behind the scenes, and it's really, I want to preface this by saying that this is just a sample, and I just kind of put it together just to give you an appreciation of what is going on behind the scenes. So we typically put together these projects in Microsoft Project, and we put together Gantt charts. And just for an example of this, I'm putting together a phase 2 study with 20 sites enrolling 100 subjects. And just as an example, I made this a 2-month dosing regimen with 6 months of follow-up. So those are just some of the criteria that went into this timeline. So we're going to assume that we can enroll 100 subjects in 6 months with 20 sites. I just want to show you. So behind the scenes, we're starting quite early. So here we get a final protocol, say, on June 15th, and we immediately go into a project preparation and site activation mode. So this includes talking about putting together contracts and putting together budgets and preparing the documents that go to the ethics committee. Perhaps there'll be translations into other languages for some of the documents. And for a study that has 20 sites, all of that activity is going on times 20. So on top of the documents that we need for the sites, we are also evaluating vendors to provide support for the study, like the central lab, the genotyping lab, perhaps a home nursing service, maybe a travel service. And so just wanted to give you kind of an indication of what's going on in this stage of the study. So there might be some sites that are very fast, and it's possible that you could have your first site activated in August, and then you have your first patient dosing shortly thereafter, and maybe in September. So that could be a very nice streamlined process there. And I just show that because I know that there have been occasions where a company might announce that a study is starting. So, but you don't hear about anything as far as results, or you don't hear anything about patients enrolling for some time. So I just want to give you some appreciation of there are lots of pieces that are ongoing, and maybe you have one site started. Maybe you're saying, well, why isn't my site started? Well, sometimes it takes longer. So in this case, there might be some sites that take as long as 6 months to get up and going. So you might see that the last site activated wouldn't actually occur until towards the end of the year. So, so startup takes some time, And in this case, I just kind of show it might be through the end of the year. And then, in this case, this is the screening and enrollment period. So subjects are being consented and being dosed through this period. I told you in my example, this is a 2-month dosing study, and then they go into a follow-up. So they might have a 6-month follow-up. So the first patient that got dosed would go into follow-up in November, and then the last patient might not get out of the study until towards October. So things on the back end of the study, so you might hear, okay, now a study has completed and everybody's very excited about that, but now we go into the phase where we're cleaning up the data, analyzing it, and preparing the report. And I just want you to be aware that things take time on the back end of a study too. So it can take about 2 months from the time that the last of the data is entered into the database. I just want you to have an understanding about how hard the study team is working for you. On the site side, the principal investigator, the study coordinator, and the research nurse are all working very closely with the sponsor to get all of this documentation in place and through all of the review and approval processes. It's a tremendous amount of work. So just to step aside, so I wanted to also mention that we are we're heavily regulated doing clinical trials, and there are many events that have contributed to the regulations that we have, and I just want to show you why we take these regulations so seriously. In particular, I want to point out 3 events that have taken place, and I actually want to provide you with one success story that was influenced by the regulations. So the first example, for those of us who go through GCP or good clinical practice training on an annual basis, we're given these stories just to reinforce why what we do is so important and why the steps are so important. So back in 1937, sulfanilamide was a commonly used drug in the powder and tablet form to treat streptococcal infection. However, this company learned that there was a demand for a liquid form of it. A chemist found that he could get this drug to dissolve in diethylene glycol. So he went ahead and formulated it and found a formulation that smelled good, it tasted good, and it looked nice in the bottle. So he went ahead and manufactured it, and they sent out 633 shipments. So at the time, the Food and Drug laws did not require any kind of safety studies to be done. And so diethylene glycol is actually antifreeze, and it's a deadly poison. So many of the victims who were children suffering from sore throats were exposed to this drug, and they exhibited symptoms of kidney failure, including stoppage of urine, severe abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and convulsions. And so another important event is the German doctors that were prosecuted for medical experiments conducted during World War II. They were prosecuted in the doctor's trial, which led to the Nuremberg Code. This controls the future trials involving human subjects and set up a set of research ethics principles for human experimentation. Particularly inspiring for me was meeting Ava Kors, who is actually one of the twins in this picture in the front of this line, who survived some of the twin experiments performed by Joseph Mengele. So she's a very powerful public speaker. And then this one is, to me, because it lasted so long and even during my lifetime, it's surprising. So This is the Tuskegee syphilis study. It was a study conducted between 1932 and 1972. The purpose was to observe the progression of untreated syphilis in rural African American men in Alabama. The men that were involved in the study were given free medical care, meals, and free burial insurance for participating in the study, but none of the men who were infected were ever told that they had the disease. They were never treated, and even though it was known that they could be treated with penicillin and that was very effective, they were never given the antibiotic to treat their syphilis. And so there are many other events that we've learned from and have applied that learning to and have, obviously increased our regulations that we have. But I want to point out a success story that I saw within this month's Smithsonian Magazine, and it's about Frances Oldham Kelsey. Thalidomide was a drug that was available outside of the United States, and it was used to treat pregnant women with morning sickness. This company wanted to market it in the United States, and Dr. Kelsey was the brave woman who stood up and helped prevent an epidemic in the United States. So, good, happy story there. In summary, so the deaths from the sulfanilamide led to the passage of laws which increased the FDA's authority to regulate drugs and safety. The Nuremberg trials led to regulations ensuring that no medical research could be done by force or coercion. And with the Tuskegee scandal, major laws were put in place to protect participants in clinical trials. They now require informed consent, communication of diagnosis, and accurate reporting of test results. So federal laws also now include requiring an institutional review board to review studies and ensure protection of human subjects. So that's just a little bit of a quick history lesson about why we do things the way we do them. So now I want to go into what you should be considering before you go into a clinical trial. And the informed consent document is actually something that the study team puts together and we put a lot of time into, and understandably gets a lot of attention from the ethics committee. So if you are considering a clinical trial, the study doctor or the principal investigator and the study nurse, they're going to review this document with you and make sure that you have full understanding about the clinical trial. They're not going to do any kind of study procedures until you've gone through that process and you're fully comfortable and that you've actually signed the document. So bottom line, there really can't be any shortcuts when it comes to the informed consent process. When we develop the document, and I'm sure some of you have seen an informed consent, I think most of the ones that I've worked with recently, they tend to balloon up to maybe 14, 15 pages. It can be quite extensive, but it's because we're required to have a lot of these checkpoints. So we have a checklist. We make sure that all of this stuff is included, and I'm just going to point out some of the things that are really important. So for sure, the document needs to be very clear that the study involves research and what the purpose of the research is. And I want to just take a moment to really distinguish that it's research. It's not a treatment. So clinical trials are not for treating a disease. We don't know what that drug will do yet. And depending on the stage, we may have more confidence in a phase 3. But that's an important thing to consider. And so it should be very clear that it is research. And in stating that, it should also go on to say what the procedures are. What are you going to be doing throughout the course of the trial. And for those procedures, which ones are standard of care, which ones are experimental? There might be procedures that are done routinely. Say, for example, if you are a kidney patient, maybe you do have biopsies, but for the purposes of a clinical trial, maybe you have them done more frequently. So that's just something important to know. Expected risks and discomforts are usually included, and we are compelled in this document to go from everything to from the venipuncture. You might say, oh, you'll have pain and possible bruising from the venipuncture, but we also go all the way to, talking about the risk and discomfort of say, a kidney biopsy. It's really important that you understand that there are alternative procedures or courses of treatment. So the study staff, when they talk to you about this, you should know all of your options. Another really important point about the informed consent process is for you to know that participation is completely voluntary. Again, going back to the last point, you should know your options, and you should know that this document, when you sign it, it's not a contract. You always have the power to choose not to participate, and so that can be at any time during the clinical trial. So, and in saying that, you can choose not to participate in the trial, and there would be no penalty or loss of benefit. There are additional elements that we add to the informed consent as appropriate, and I think here I just want to really point out that during the course of a trial, if there are things that we learn that might influence a subject's willingness to participate, that's something that we're committed to sharing, and so that does happen. Sometimes clinical trials are not done singly. There might be other studies going on at the same time, and there might be new information that is learned during that course of that study. And I just want to also point out that so the study staff at the clinical site, that all of their activities, that's heavily regulated by federal laws. The sponsor, all of the activities that we participate in for clinical trials, that's also heavily regulated by laws. And then the institutional review board is as well. So there are laws requiring how they review studies and how they document that, and how they are supposed to be unbiased. So this is supposed to be an independent committee made up of physicians, statisticians, and members of the community, and really they're tasked to make sure that the study subject is protected, and also to look at the study design and make sure that it's ethical. So, kind of final thoughts about clinical trial participation. Gina also asked me to touch on the difference between a physician who is acting as your primary care physician or a specialist versus the principal investigator. And so I just wanted, I'm putting up this table, you guys should review it, but it's really important to note that principal investigators and their staff are specially trained to conduct clinical trials and work with the patients to generate the data in a way that is going to be compliant with the FDA regulations. Your personal care physician or your specialist is focused on your care, and so that's an important thing to distinguish. So I hope that's clear. So now I'm going to talk about kind of my call to action for you guys. I think that it's important that you guys think about getting involved. And there are lots of great resources out there. I've been involved with the Alport Syndrome Foundation since 2013, and that's a great group of people. You can see their picture there at the ASN conference, and they have great resources and lots of educational forums for you. For example, there's the Alport Family Meeting coming up in July in Salt Lake City. So I attended these. They are great, and it's transformational for the families that I've seen. There's also Global Genes, the Astor Registry, and the FDA website. And so I'm going to show you guys those websites to just give you some ideas of where you can go for additional information and resources. So first, here is the Alport Syndrome website. Hopefully you guys have all gone to this, and but certainly you can go to the patient and caregiver page, and there's all kinds of events and information that can be shared. If you want to find out more about clinical research, there is a tab to go to for that. This is the Global Genes website, and this is an opportunity if you are somebody who likes to play with social media. So they have an event where you can do a 15-second segment on why you care about rare and why everybody else should too. So this is an opportunity for you to do something kind of fun. And then one of the easiest things you guys can do is get involved with the Astor Registry. So this is the Astor website, and you can go here, click on Research and Study, and then you can go down to this section here and contact the University of Minnesota. Let me just tell you from the industry side of things, when we go to do a clinical trial, the first thing that we do is turn to the registry to see where we can find the patients for our clinical studies. And so you can do your part by going ahead and adding your information to this and contributing to that. And I'll show you the FDA website. So I think this used to be a much more difficult website to navigate, but if you go here, you can see that there's a tab for patients, and then once you get in here, there are places where you can sign up for the FDA newsletter, and then what's even more cool is this learn about patient engagement at the FDA. So more and more the FDA is engaging patients to speak out and they're providing more opportunities for your voice to be heard. So watch here for public meetings. Many of them are webinars, and you can watch them on your computer. Last Friday there was one that came up, and so I actually, on the slide, I have a link to that, and it's and they have a transcript and all of the slides from the meeting. But there are more coming, and they look really, really interesting. This is another website that this is a website I'm not very familiar with, but it's called researchmatch.org. And what they're doing here is matching patients to clinical studies. So this is very simple. You just go ahead and put your information in here, and depending on what you're looking for, or if you have certain inclusion, criteria that match a study, then you might get matched up to something. And then the NIH website is really, really good. I think this is it has some great tools for finding clinical trials and giving you basic information about what clinical trials are. If you hear terminology that you're not familiar with, this is probably a pretty good resource for that. Another one of my slides has a hyperlink for this. I thought this was a great, it's not a webinar, it's just a little sound, it's called Rarecast. So how rare disease patients can get their voices heard in drug discovery and development. What I do is I just start this up. This is only 17 minutes long, so you can just kind of have this going in the background while you're getting some other stuff done at your convenience. And this is what I really wanted to show you guys today, because I go to professional conferences and I always hear about these services that are trying to match patients to studies. And I want to show you that this website, clinicaltrials.gov, is a great resource for that. People talk about it being not very user-friendly, but I wanted to show you guys quickly how you could use this to look for studies. So say you wanted to look for an Alport study. So you can just do a search for Alport. And you can see here that there were 15 studies found. But if you kind of scan down here, you'll see that some of them are active, some of them are completed, some of them are terminated. This one is unknown. So if it were me, I'd be looking for something that's recruited. So I'm going to just click on this saying, show me the open studies only. So that narrows it down to 7. And then what's kind of cool to do is I actually like using this map. So you go click over on the map and you can see where those studies are distributed around the world. I'm assuming everybody on the phone is probably in the United States, so I'm going to click on the US. And you can see the distribution of those studies across the United States. And boy, Minnesota is hot. So I'm going to take a look at that. And there are 4 studies. And you can just click on them and go, okay, this first one, it's the App Store registry. So that's a registry. It's not interventional. You can see right here, it's an observational study. It's been going on for a while, and if you hadn't gotten to the website already, you could find out who's doing the clinical trial here and how to get in touch with them. Then you can go to the next one, which is being done by Novartis. And you can see, again, that's an observational study right here. And down towards the bottom, you can kind of see how to get in touch with whomever is in charge of that trial. The next one is the Athena trial. So this one has, this again is an observational study. You can see the eligibility there and all of the locations. And then if you wanted to find out more information, they have a hyperlink to the Athena website. And then the next study is the Cardinal study. And so this again, you can see, so this is out of the 4, this is the only interventional one. You guys kind of knew that already probably. But anyway, it has all of the information about the study, the intervention, and it has a place where you can expand all of the study locations. So you can see if there's one in a town near you. And then you can also, you can go to the website, and then there's a contact person right there. So they make it very easy for you to see it. So I just wanted to show you that, and show you that you can use this, and it can be pretty simple. One of the other things I wanted to show you is if you just did a search, I want to show you this, subscribe to RSS. So what this does is it allows you to kind of track any kind of changes. So see, for example, this first study that says active not recruiting, you could click on this and create this RSS feed, and then when they get around to switching the status of this study, you would get a notification. Or see, for example, there's a site that's close to you on this second study, and now they show that it's activated. So you would get an update through your RSS feed. So I think that's a really helpful thing for you guys to keep an eye on. So I hope that helps you guys with navigating around clinicaltrials.gov. It's certainly an important tool for us as we do our clinical trials. So I'm hoping that that's something that might be helpful for you. So with that, I want to say thank you. What you guys do for when you participate in a clinical trial, you become an important part of that search for better ways to understand and treat disease, and your participation is really important for improving health for today and future generations. So I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jacqui. Before we go to the questions that people have online, and if you do have any questions, please type them right into the chat box there. I had made a list of some questions that came in on our social media sites. People who knew that they wouldn't be able to attend this live but wanted to make sure that their questions were addressed. There's a lot of chat on the social media of people, for lack of a better word, feeling bad about going to a doctor who is not their doctor for a clinical trial. They are worried that if they ask their doctor about a clinical trial that they are not participating in, that the doctor will in some way, I guess, feel bad or question if they are planning to leave them, or they're afraid if there's a taboo or a faux pas to ask one doctor about a trial that they're not participating in. And I wanted to see if you could address that a little bit, because
I've heard that before, and that's why I wanted to stress the importance of the difference between a principal investigator and whomever is either giving you your primary care physician or your specialist, your nephrologist, because again the study team that is working for the principal investigator, they are focused on okay, these are the procedures that we need to do for the trial. This is how we collect the data. I mean, it's important for them to be following the protocol. Your personal care physician is focused on you and what is right for your disease and your treatment. They might see something that requires a change in treatment. Maybe you need to change your dosage of ramipril, or what typically will happen is if you talk to your physician about being interested in a clinical trial, your physician will refer you to the investigator, and they'll speak and they'll have an agreement about sharing the information. It might actually happen during the course of the clinical trial where a lab shows up that looks different or unusual, and so you'll see frequently that there's communication back and forth, and they confer about the appropriate treatment of you as a patient, and even whether it might not be appropriate for you to continue in the clinical trial, whether it's safe for you or not. So they're very different roles, and you shouldn't feel bad about your physician not just speaking to them about participating in a clinical trial if they're not. There are cases where, for example, Michelle Rowe, she does have patients that she sees, and she is a principal investigator, but it's not for everyone, and so I typically see that the physicians are happy to work with the principal investigator.
And this is something that isn't new to anyone involved, correct? It's
Right.
You're not presenting a whole new thing to your doctor that they've never done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, we had a question on here, and I'm not sure, it's specifically about the Regulus study, although we're trying to talk about all of the clinical trials. At what stage is the Regulus study now about microRNA? I can provide the information that we have, or if you have information.
Yeah, I don't work for Regulus anymore, so I can't really speak to that.
Right. We've been told that they are still moving forward with a phase 2 study. Right now, they are completing the phase 1 study in healthy adults and plan to move forward into phase 2 shortly.
Yep, that's what I know too.
Similar, going back to the other question, if I am thinking about a clinical trial, what is, and there, as reference, there may be a few clinical trials that may be started. What are some things that I should consider when deciding if a clinical trial is for me?
Well, that's very individual, and actually, I think that, certainly it would be, in my mind, I would be thinking like this. I would be considering the stage of the trial. I'd be interested in finding out more about the mechanism of action. So, is it a drug that's being repurposed, or is it something that's completely new that no one's ever has ever had before? The informed consent is a great document for talking about the procedures. As a working mom, I would be probably considering how much time it would take me, and that can give you some insight there. How frequent are the visits? Do I really want to go through some of the procedures that are involved? I actually ask myself that as we're designing trials anyway, and I try to be an advocate for the patients as we're designing things. I know that just in my own healthcare, I once had to go through 48 hours of Holter monitoring, and have decided I'm never writing that into another clinical protocol again. But certainly time is important. Where is the location? Really, what is the drug? What phase is it in? How much information is available about it? Those were some of the things that I would be thinking about.
Great. And what are some of the typical, logistics in terms of travel? Is there sometimes travel reimbursement available for patients?
Yeah, and that, again, kind of going back to that informed consent, so that would be required to be in the informed consent. So I know that for the Athena trial, there were subjects that were traveling across the United States because for whatever reason, they needed to go to a location that was not close to where they were living. And so for that particular trial, travel reimbursement and patient stipends are available, and those are clearly enunciated in the informed consent. And then, of course, there are the logistics of how that's taken care of, and there's always documentation for how all of those processes are put in place.
Great. So it is helpful maybe for people who are considering a study to look into if there isn't a location nearby, if there is a travel reimbursement and or a stipend, and what the policy for that is.
Yeah, and trust me, the Institutional Review Board gets all over that, because they're very concerned about making sure that There's nothing coercive about it. So yes, you can have reimbursement for your hotel stay and your airfare, but there shouldn't be any feeling of going on a spa day or something like that. Everything needs to be fair, transparent, and above board, and certainly not coercive. But there are clinical trials where reimbursement doesn't happen. Typically, I would say those are like oncology trials. But all of that information would be something that the study team and the informed consent would present to you, and should be very clear.
There seems, and I think most people understand what a placebo is, but I think some people on social media wanted a little bit more information, I guess, and this goes more to the idea of the study being research and not therapy, about how half the people, for example, in the phase 3 RIATA study will receive a placebo. And I know you mentioned it before, but can you just speak again to its importance and how valuable that person is in the study, even if they are receiving a placebo?
Yeah, so for some drugs and some compounds where we don't fully understand the mechanism of action, or if they're not marketed and being used for that disease and haven't established some sort of history of what that treatment is like, you need to have a placebo control. I'm speaking in such generalities here, so there are so many exceptions to this. But so let's just say, for example, when we're talking about the phase 1 Regulus trial, and we had subjects that were getting subcutaneous injection. So in that case, we did have a placebo control, and so the folks that were randomized into the placebo arm of the study, they were still getting injections, and it was saline. So the idea being that you're really trying to have as much consistency as possible across the different arms of the study, and treat everybody as similarly as possible. So everybody's getting an injection, some are getting active, and some are getting saline. And so when you're able to, so that you have a comparison of a reaction that, if everybody got headaches, then you can say, well, the placebo got it too. But if only the active folks were having indigestion, then maybe you have something there. So I hope that helps you understand the importance of having the placebo control. And further to that, the idea of having a placebo, it is carefully considered depending on the type of disease. So I know I've worked on oncology studies, and there are drugs out there, so we have this history, so we didn't have to do placebo controls. It's because we had something to compare against. And I hope that's very simplified, but I hope that makes sense.
No, thank you. I'm going to unmute all the lines, so if anybody who is on the phone and not on their computer has any questions, you can ask them.
The conference has been unmuted.
So everyone is unmuted now. If you have a question that you would like to ask aloud, you can do so. All right. Well, I will presume then, and the silence means that no one had any additional questions, and our time, it's been about an hour, so I want to say thank you so much again to Jacqui for this presentation. I'm sure I speak for everyone on the line that it has been very helpful and will be helpful for a while to come on our website for those who view it after. And if you have any questions for Jacqui after this or for ASF, you can email them to info@alportsyndrome.org, and we will make sure to either answer them or pass them along to Jacqui. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again to Jacqui, and thank you to Global Genes for making these presentations possible.
Thank
everyone,
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.